The cold December air bit at my cheeks as I stood on the front porch, watching the last traces of daylight fade behind the pine trees that lined our old street. The sky had turned that particular shade of deep purple that only appears on winter evenings, when the world seems to hold its breath before nightfall. I pulled my cardigan tighter around my shoulders, feeling the soft wool against my skin, and breathed in deeply. The air smelled of wood smoke from neighboring chimneys, mixed with the sharp, clean scent of snow that hadn't fallen yet but promised to arrive any moment. It had been 7 years since Emma left. 7 long years since that August morning when she packed her life into 2 suitcases and a backpack, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and drove away in a taxi that kicked up dust from our gravel driveway. I remember standing in almost this exact spot, watching until the car disappeared around the corner, feeling like a piece of my heart had been torn away and carried off to some distant place I couldn't follow. Mom called from inside the house, her voice warm and slightly muffled by the closed door. "Dinner is almost ready, sweetheart. Come inside before you catch your death of cold." But I couldn't move yet. Something kept me rooted to that spot on the porch, my hands gripping the wooden railing that Dad had painted green the summer before he passed. The paint was chipping now, rough under my fingertips, and I traced the familiar grooves and imperfections without thinking. The neighborhood was quiet in that special way that only happens during the holidays, when everyone is tucked inside their homes, preparing meals and wrapping presents and pretending that the world outside doesn't exist for a little while. A few houses down, I could see the Hendersons' Christmas lights twinkling through their front window, casting red and gold patterns onto the snow that had fallen 2 days earlier and still clung to their lawn in patches. Our own lights, the same ones we'd been using for 15 years, hung along the porch railing and around the front door, their soft white glow creating a bubble of warmth in the gathering darkness. I thought about Emma constantly during the holidays. It was impossible not to. Every tradition, every smell, every song on the radio brought her back to me in vivid flashes. The way she used to sneak downstairs at 5 in the morning on Christmas Day, unable to wait any longer, and wake me by jumping on my bed like we were still little kids. The way she'd hum along to carols while helping Mom in the kitchen, always slightly off-key but so full of joy that nobody minded. The way she'd insist on making snow angels even when it was so cold our fingers went numb, laughing as she lay in the snow and moved her arms and legs, creating perfect impressions that would freeze solid by morning. She'd left to chase a dream, and I understood that. I really did. Emma had always been the brave one, the one who looked at the horizon and saw possibility instead of fear. She'd gotten a job offer in Seattle, working for some tech company whose name I could never quite remember, and the opportunity was too good to pass up. Better money, better prospects, a chance to build something new. She promised she'd visit often, that distance wouldn't change anything between us, that we'd talk every week and it would be like she never left. But life has a way of getting complicated. The visits became less frequent. Once a year, then once every 2 years. The weekly phone calls turned into monthly texts, then sporadic messages on birthdays and holidays. It wasn't that she stopped caring. I knew that. It was just that she'd built a whole new life out there, with new friends and new routines and new responsibilities that pulled her in 1,000 different directions. And I'd stayed here, in our hometown, in the house where we grew up, taking care of Mom after Dad died and working at the library and living a life that probably seemed small and quiet compared to Emma's big city adventures. I didn't resent her for it. Not really. Maybe there were moments, late at night when I couldn't sleep, when I felt a flash of something bitter and hot in my chest. But mostly, I just missed her. I missed my sister, my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone else in the world. I missed the sound of her laugh, loud and uninhibited, the kind of laugh that made other people smile even if they didn't know what was funny. I missed the way she'd braid my hair when I was stressed, her fingers quick and gentle, humming softly while she worked. I missed having someone to share secrets with, someone who understood our family's quirks and history without needing explanations. Mom called again, more insistent this time. "Sarah, the potatoes are getting cold." I sighed and turned toward the door, ready to go inside and pretend that this Christmas would be fine, that the empty chair at our table didn't feel like a gaping wound, that I wasn't counting down the hours until I could go to bed and stop pretending to be cheerful. My hand was on the doorknob, cold metal against my palm, when I heard it. A car engine, growing louder as it approached. I paused, listening. Cars passed by our house all the time, of course, but something about this one made me turn back around. The sound was getting closer, slowing down. I watched as headlights appeared at the end of our street, cutting through the darkness, and a small blue sedan turned into our driveway. My heart started beating faster, though I didn't know why. We weren't expecting anyone. Mom's sister had called earlier to say she couldn't make it this year because of the weather, and our neighbors always knocked before coming over. I stood frozen on the porch, watching as the car came to a stop and the engine cut off. The headlights died, leaving only the glow from our Christmas lights and the dim illumination from the street lamp at the corner. For a long moment, nothing happened. The car just sat there, silent and still, and I began to wonder if someone was lost in checking their GPS. Then the driver's side door opened, and a figure stepped out into the cold night air. I couldn't see clearly at first. The person was backlit by the street lamp, just a dark silhouette against the winter evening. But there was something familiar about the way they moved, the tilt of their head, the shape of their shoulders. My breath caught in my throat. The figure closed the car door with a soft thunk that echoed in the quiet street and started walking toward the porch. As they came closer, passing through the pool of light from our Christmas decorations, I saw her face. Time seemed to stop. My hands went numb, and I forgot how to breathe. It was Emma. My sister. Standing in our driveway with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder and tears streaming down her cheeks, her breath coming out in white puffs in the freezing air. "Emma," I whispered, but my voice came out as barely a sound, lost in the cold air. I tried again, louder this time. "Emma?" She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, looking up at me with those same green eyes I remembered, though they looked older now, tired in a way that had nothing to do with the long flight she must have taken. Her hair was longer than it used to be, falling past her shoulders in dark waves that caught the light from our decorations. She was wearing a gray coat I'd never seen before, and her nose was red from the cold. "Hi, Sarah," she said, and her voice cracked on my name. "I'm sorry I didn't call first. I needed to come home. I needed to see you." The words broke whatever spell had been holding me in place. I flew down the porch steps, not caring that I wasn't wearing shoes, not caring that the wooden boards were icy and rough against my feet. I crashed into her with enough force that we both stumbled backward, and then my arms were around her and hers were around me, and we were holding each other so tightly that I couldn't tell where I ended and she began. She smelled different. That was the first thing I noticed. She used to smell like the vanilla body spray she bought at the drugstore and the mint shampoo we both used. Now she smelled like expensive perfume and airplane recycled air and coffee, but underneath all of that, there was something familiar. Something that was purely Emma, unchanged by time or distance. I buried my face in her shoulder and felt 7 years of missing her crash over me like a wave. "I can't believe you're here," I said into her coat, my voice muffled and thick with tears I hadn't realized I was crying. "I can't believe you're really here." "I'm here," she said, and I felt her hand come up to stroke my hair, the same way she used to when we were kids and I'd had a nightmare. "I'm so sorry it took me so long. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. We stood there in the driveway for what felt like hours but was probably only a few minutes, holding each other and crying and not caring that we were making a scene, not caring that the cold was seeping through our clothes and making us shiver. The front door opened behind us, and I heard Mom's voice, confused and questioning. Sarah, what on earth are you doing outside without shoes? Who is that? Emma pulled back just enough to look past me at the porch, and I turned to see Mom standing in the doorway, one hand gripping the frame for support. The light from inside the house created a halo around her, and I watched as recognition dawned on her face. Her other hand came up to cover her mouth, and she made a sound that was half gasp, half sob. Emma? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Emma, baby, is that really you? Hi, Mom, Emma said, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Merry Christmas. Mom didn't walk down the steps. She ran, moving faster than I'd seen her move in years, and then all three of us were tangled together in a knot of arms and tears and laughter. Mom was saying Emma's name over and over like a prayer, like she was afraid if she stopped, Emma would disappear again. Emma was apologizing and crying and trying to explain why she'd come, though her words were so jumbled and broken that I couldn't make sense of them. And I was just holding on to both of them, feeling more complete than I had in 7 years. Eventually, the cold became too much to ignore. Mom pulled back, still gripping Emma's arms like she was afraid to let go, and said, "Come inside, both of you. Sarah, your feet must be frozen solid. Emma, sweetheart, you must be exhausted. Come in, come in." We made our way up the porch steps, Emma grabbing her duffel bag from where she'd dropped it in the driveway. Inside, the house was exactly as warm and bright as I'd left it just minutes before, but somehow it felt different now. More alive. More like home. The smell of Mom's cooking filled the air, rich and savory, mixing with the scent of the pine candles she always lit during the holidays and the faint mustiness of the old house itself. Emma stopped just inside the door, looking around with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Nothing's changed," she said softly, and I couldn't tell if she was happy about that or sad. "The same furniture, the same pictures on the walls, the same rug in the hallway. It's like I stepped back in time." "Some things change, some things stay the same," Mom said, helping Emma out of her coat and hanging it on the rack by the door. "The important things, the things that matter, those stay the same. You'll always have a home here, Emma. Always." I watched Emma's face crumple at those words, watched her struggle to hold back another wave of tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't deserve that, but thank you." "Nonsense," Mom said firmly, cupping Emma's face in her hands. "You're my daughter. You'll always deserve a place here. Now, let's get some food in you. You look like you haven't eaten a proper meal in weeks." She wasn't wrong. Now that we were in the bright light of the house, I could see that Emma had lost weight. Her face was thinner, her cheekbones more prominent, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. Her hands, when I took one to lead her toward the kitchen, felt cold and fragile, like bird bones wrapped in skin. The kitchen was my favorite room in the house, especially during the holidays. Mom had outdone herself this year with the decorations. Garland hung from the cabinet handles, interspersed with red berries and small golden bells that chimed softly whenever someone walked past. The old wooden table, scarred from years of family meals and homework sessions and late-night conversations, was set for two, but Mom immediately started pulling out another plate and set of silverware. The overhead light cast a warm yellow glow over everything, and the windows were steamed up from the heat of cooking, creating a cozy cocoon that shut out the cold darkness outside. "Sit, sit," Mom commanded, gesturing to the chairs. Emma, you take your old spot. Sarah, help me bring the food over. I moved automatically, grabbing the bowl of mashed potatoes and the platter of roasted chicken while Mom brought over the green beans and the basket of rolls. Emma sat down slowly, like she wasn't quite sure she was allowed to, and ran her hand over the table's surface. I watched her fingers trace a particular gouge in the wood, a mark she'd made when she was 12 and had been carving her initials with a butter knife when Mom wasn't looking. I remember when I did this, Emma said quietly, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. You were so mad, Mom. You made me scrub every dish for a week. I was mad because you ruined a perfectly good table, Mom said, but she was smiling too as she sat down. But I'll admit, I'm glad the mark is still there now. It's a piece of you that stayed behind. We served ourselves in silence for a few moments, the only sounds the clink of silverware against plates and the soft whistle of wind outside the windows. I kept glancing at Emma, still half convinced that she was a dream, that I'd blink and find myself alone on the porch again, waiting for someone who would never come. But she was solid and real, sitting in her old chair, spooning mashed potatoes onto her plate with hands that trembled slightly. So, Mom said gently, once we'd all started eating. Not that we're not thrilled to see you, sweetheart, but this is quite a surprise. What brought you home? Emma set down her fork and stared at her plate for a long moment. I watched emotions flicker across her face, too quick for me to identify. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and strained. I quit my job, she said. 3 weeks ago. I just walked into my boss's office and told him I was done, and then I packed up my desk and left. Mom and I exchanged glances. Emma had loved that job, or at least that's what she'd always told us. She'd talked about it with such enthusiasm during our infrequent phone calls, describing projects and colleagues and opportunities with the kind of passion that made it clear she'd found her calling. Why? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral, non-judgmental. What happened? Emma laughed, but it was a bitter sound, nothing like her real laugh. Everything happened. Nothing happened. I don't know. She picked up her fork again, pushing food around her plate without eating. I woke up one morning, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't go into that office, couldn't sit in those meetings, couldn't pretend that any of it mattered. I looked around my apartment, this expensive place in a trendy neighborhood that I'd worked so hard to afford, and I realized I hated it. I hated the gray walls and the modern furniture and the view of other people's apartments. I hated my life. The words hung in the air, heavy and painful. Mom reached across the table and took Emma's hand, squeezing gently. Oh, sweetheart, she said. I'm so sorry. Why didn't you call us? Why didn't you tell us you were struggling? Because I was ashamed, Emma said, and now the tears were back, sliding down her cheeks and dripping onto her plate. Because I was the one who left. I was the one who chose that life, who said this town wasn't enough for me, who wanted something bigger and better. How could I call you and admit that I'd made a mistake? That I'd thrown away 7 years chasing something that turned out to be empty? You could never be a disappointment to us, I said, my own voice thick with emotion. Never, Emma. We've missed you every single day. If you were unhappy, we would have wanted to know. We would have helped. I know that now, Emma said, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. But at the time, I just felt so lost. I'd built this whole identity around being the successful one, the one who made it out and did something with her life. And when that started falling apart, I didn't know who I was anymore. She took a shaky breath. I spent 2 weeks after I quit just sitting in my apartment, not answering calls, barely eating. My friends kept texting, asking if I wanted to go out, but I couldn't face them.
Couldn't face anyone. What changed? Mom asked softly. Emma smiled, and this time it was genuine, if sad. I found a box in my closet.
I'd been packing, trying to figure out what to do next, whether to look for another job or move to a cheaper place or what. And I found this box that I'd packed when I first moved out there, stuff from home that I'd brought with me.
I hadn't opened it in years.
She paused, taking a sip of water.
There were photos in there.
Pictures of us, of this house, of Christmases past. There was the ornament Sarah made me in 3rd grade, the one shaped like a star with my name written in glitter. There was Dad's old watch, the one he gave me before he died. And there was a letter.
A letter?
I asked, leaning forward.
From who?
From Dad, Emma said, and her voice broke on the word. He wrote it to me right before he died, but I guess I'd forgotten about it.
Or maybe I'd been too scared to read it again.
But that day, sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by boxes, I opened it and read it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn soft from age and handling. The edges were yellowed, and I could see Dad's handwriting through the thin paper, his distinctive scrawl that always looked like it was in a hurry to get somewhere.
Emma unfolded it carefully, reverently, and smoothed it out on the table.
He wrote about a lot of things, Emma said, running her finger along the lines of text. About how proud he was of me, about how he knew I'd do great things.
But there was one part that I kept coming back to.
She cleared her throat and began to read.
Remember, Emma girl, that success isn't measured by how far you go or how much you achieve.
It's measured by how much love you have in your life, and how much love you give back. Don't ever get so caught up in chasing dreams that you forget about the people who matter most.
Home isn't a place you leave behind.
It's a place you carry with you, and it's always there waiting when you need it. The kitchen was silent except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall and the soft hum of the refrigerator. I felt tears streaming down my own face now, remembering Dad, missing him with an intensity that still surprised me even though he'd been gone for 5 years. Mom was crying too, quiet tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. He was right, Emma continued, folding the letter back up and clutching it in her hand. I'd been so focused on building this life, this career, this image of success, that I'd forgotten what actually mattered. I'd forgotten about you, about home, about the people who loved me before I had a fancy job title or a nice apartment. And sitting there on that floor, I realized that I'd been homesick for 7 years.
Not just missing home, but actually sick from being away from it.
So I bought a plane ticket, Emma said. I didn't call because I was afraid if I did, I'd lose my nerve. I was afraid you'd tell me not to come, or that too much time had passed, or that I'd hurt you too badly by staying away so long. I just packed a bag and got on a plane and rented a car at the airport and drove here. And the whole way, I kept thinking about what I'd say, how I'd explain, how I'd apologize for being such a terrible sister and daughter. But now that I'm here, I don't have the words. I just know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mom stood up and walked around the table, pulling Emma into a fierce hug. You stop apologizing right now, she said firmly. You're home. That's all that matters. You're home, and we love you, and everything else we can figure out together. I got up too, joining the embrace, and the 3 of us stood there in the kitchen, holding each other and crying and laughing all at once. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows, and I heard the first soft patter of snow beginning to fall. It felt like the universe was acknowledging this moment, marking it as significant, wrapping us in a blanket of white while we put our family back together. When we finally pulled apart and sat back down, the food had gone cold, but none of us cared. We reheated our plates in the microwave and ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Emma told us about Seattle, about the friends she'd made and the places she'd seen, but also about the loneliness, the feeling of being surrounded by people but still feeling utterly alone. She told us about the job that had seemed so perfect at first but had gradually consumed her life, leaving no room for anything else. She told us about the relationships that had failed because she'd been too focused on work, about the hobbies she'd abandoned, about the version of herself she'd lost somewhere along the way. Mom and I listened, asking questions, offering comfort, just being present in a way we hadn't been able to be for 7 years. I told Emma about my life too, about the library and the regular patrons who'd become like friends, about the book club I'd started, about the small joys and quiet contentments of a life that might look boring from the outside but felt rich and full to me. Mom talked about her garden, about the neighbors, about the changes in town and the things that had stayed the same. Hours passed without us noticing. The clock struck 10, then 11, and still we sat at the kitchen table, talking and laughing and occasionally crying. It felt like no time had passed at all, like Emma had never left, like we were just picking up a conversation we'd paused 7 years ago. But it also felt different, deeper somehow. We weren't the same people we'd been when Emma left. We'd all grown and changed and been shaped by our experiences. But the love between us, that fundamental connection, that had remained constant. Eventually, Mom yawned and announced that she needed to get to bed. "I'm not as young as I used to be," she said with a smile. "I can't stay up all night like you girls." "Emma, your room is exactly as you left it. I haven't changed a thing. I kept hoping you'd come back and want it to feel like home." Emma's eyes filled with tears again. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "For everything. For not giving up on me." "Never," Mom said, kissing Emma's forehead. "I could never give up on you. You're my baby girl, no matter how old you get or how far you go." She looked at both of us, her expression soft and full of love. "I'm so grateful to have both my daughters under this roof tonight. It's the best Christmas present I could have asked for." After Mom went upstairs, Emma and I stayed in the kitchen, neither of us ready to end the night. "Want some tea?" I asked, and Emma nodded. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove, pulling out 2 mugs and the box of chamomile tea that we both loved. The familiar ritual was soothing, grounding, a reminder of countless other nights we'd spent like this, talking over tea until the early hours of the morning. While we waited for the water to boil, Emma wandered into the living room, and I followed. She stood in front of the Christmas tree, a 6-foot Douglas fir that Mom and I had picked out from the lot downtown and decorated with our collection of ornaments accumulated over decades. The lights were still on, casting a soft multicolored glow over the room, and the angel on top, slightly crooked because we could never get it quite straight, seemed to smile down at us. Emma reached out and touched one of the ornaments, a clay handprint she'd made in kindergarten. Her name was written across the palm in a teacher's neat handwriting, and the date, 28 years ago, was stamped on the back. "I can't believe you still have this," she said softly. "Of course we do," I said, coming to stand beside her. "We have all of them. Every ornament you ever made, every school picture, every report card. Mom kept everything." Emma moved from ornament to ornament, touching each one gently, remembering. There was the popsicle stick reindeer I'd made in 2nd grade, the felt stocking with our names embroidered on it that Grandma had made before she passed, the glass ball from our trip to New York when I was 10 and Emma was 12, the wooden nutcracker Dad had bought at a craft fair the last Christmas before he got sick. Each one held a memory, a moment in time, a piece of our family history. The kettle whistled, and I went back to the kitchen to make the tea. When I returned, Emma was sitting on the couch, curled up in the corner with her legs tucked under her, exactly the way she used to sit. I handed her a mug, and she wrapped her hands around it, breathing in the steam. "I missed this," she said. "Just sitting here, in this room, with you. I didn't realize how much until right now." "I missed it too," I said, settling into my own corner of the couch. "Every Christmas, every holiday, every random Tuesday. I missed having you here." Emma looked at me over the rim of her mug, her expression serious. "I know I can't make up for the time I lost," she said. "I know I can't undo the hurt I caused by staying away. But I want to try. I want to be here, really be here, not just physically but emotionally. I want to be the sister I should have been all along." "You're here now," I said. "That's what matters. And you didn't cause hurt intentionally. You were living your life, following your dreams. We understood that." "But I should have made more of an effort," Emma insisted. "I should have called more, visited more. I should have been there when you needed me." She set down her mug and turned to face me fully. "Tell me about the last 7 years. Really tell me. Not just the highlights you mentioned in texts or the sanitized versions you gave me on the phone. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the hard parts, the things I'd kept from her because I didn't want to burden her or make her feel guilty for being away. I told her about the first year after Dad died, how lost and broken Mom and I had been, how we'd moved through the house like ghosts, unable to accept that he was really gone. I told her about the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, missing both Dad and her, feeling like my family was falling apart and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I told her about the relationship I'd had with Mark, a guy I'd met at the library, and how it had seemed promising at first but ultimately hadn't worked out because he'd wanted to move to Chicago for a job and I couldn't leave Mom. I told her about the guilt I'd felt, wondering if I was using Mom as an excuse, if I was too scared to take a chance on something new. I told her about the loneliness, the feeling of being stuck while everyone else my age was moving forward with their lives, getting married and having kids and building careers. But I also told her about the good things. About the promotion I'd gotten at the library, becoming the head of the children's department, and how much joy it brought me to help kids discover the magic of reading. About the garden Mom and I had planted in the backyard, and how therapeutic it had been to work with the soil, to nurture things and watch them grow. About the friends I'd made, the community I'd built, the life that might not be glamorous but was mine and felt right. Emma listened to all of it without interrupting, her eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, she was crying again, silent tears that tracked down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here for you," she said. "I'm so sorry you went through all of that alone." "I wasn't alone," I said gently. "I had Mom. I had friends. And I had the memory of you, the knowledge that somewhere out there, my sister was living her life and hopefully being happy. That was enough to get me through." "But it shouldn't have had to be," Emma said. "I should have been here. I should have been the one holding your hand through breakups and celebrating your promotion and helping you take care of Mom. That's what sisters do." "Sisters also support each other's dreams," I said. "And that's what I was doing. I was supporting your dream, even if it meant you couldn't be here physically. I never resented you for leaving, Emma. I was proud of you. Even when I stopped calling as much? Even when I missed holidays? Even then," I said firmly. "Because I knew you still loved us. I knew that distance and time didn't change that fundamental truth. And I was right, wasn't I?" You're here now, and it's like no time has passed at all.
Emma reached over and took my hand, squeezing it tightly.
I don't know what I did to deserve a sister like you, she said.
But I'm grateful for it every day.
We sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping our tea and watching the lights on the Christmas tree blink on and off in their programmed pattern. Outside, the snow was falling more heavily now, and I could see it accumulating on the windowsill, creating a white border around the glass. The house was warm and quiet, filled with the kind of peace that only comes when you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
What are you going to do now? I asked eventually. Are you going back to Seattle? Emma shook her head. I don't think so. I gave up my apartment, sold most of my furniture. Everything I own is either in storage or in that duffel bag upstairs.
I don't have a plan, which is terrifying for someone who's always had a 5-year plan mapped out.
But I think that's okay.
I think maybe I need to not have a plan for a while. I need to just be here, with you and Mom, and figure out who I am when I'm not defined by my job or my zip code. You could stay here, I said, trying to keep the hope out of my voice and failing completely.
Mom would love it. I would love it.
Your room is waiting for you, just like she said.
Are you sure? Emma asked. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to disrupt your life.
You could never be a burden, I said. And as for disrupting my life, please do.
It could use some disruption. It could use you.
Emma smiled, a real smile this time, the kind that reached her eyes and made her look like the girl I remembered from before she left.
Okay, she said.
Okay, I'll stay.
At least for a while. At least until I figure out what comes next. That's all I'm asking, I said. Just stay for a while.
Let us take care of you for a change. We finished our tea and rinsed out the mugs, moving around the kitchen in the synchronized way that only comes from years of shared space and shared routines. Emma turned off the Christmas tree lights while I checked that the doors were locked and the stove was off. Then we climbed the stairs together, our footsteps creaking on the old wooden steps that had been there since the house was built 70 years ago. At the top of the stairs, we paused outside Emma's room. The door was closed, and I watched as she put her hand on the knob, hesitating.
What if it's not how I remember? She asked quietly. What if it feels wrong? It won't, I promised. But there's only one way to find out.
She opened the door, and I reached around her to flip on the light. The room was exactly as she'd left it 7 years ago. The same pale blue walls, the same white furniture, the same quilt on the bed that Grandma had made. Her bookshelf was still full of the books she'd loved as a teenager, and her desk still had the lamp with the purple shade and the cup full of pens. Mom had kept it dusted and clean, a shrine to the daughter who'd left but never been forgotten.
Emma walked in slowly, touching things as she went.
The dresser, the mirror, the windowsill where she used to sit and read on sunny afternoons. She picked up a framed photo from the nightstand, a picture of the two of us from the summer before she left. We were at the lake, both of us sunburned and grinning, our arms around each other. We looked so young, so carefree, so unaware of how much things were about to change. I remember this day, Emma said softly. We'd gone swimming and then had a picnic on the beach. You ate so much watermelon you got a stomachache, and I had to drive us home because you were moaning about how you were going to die. I laughed at the memory. I was convinced I was dying. You kept telling me I was being dramatic, but you also stopped at the store and bought me ginger ale and crackers. Because that's what sisters do, Emma said, setting the photo back down. They take care of each other, even when one of them is being ridiculous about watermelon. I hugged her one more time, breathing in the scent of her, committing this moment to memory. "I'm so glad you're home," I whispered into her hair. "Me too," she whispered back. "Me too." I left her to unpack and get ready for bed, closing the door softly behind me. In my own room, I changed into my pajamas and climbed under the covers, but I was too wired to sleep. I lay there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the house. The creak of floorboards as Emma moved around her room. The distant sound of Mom's soft snoring from down the hall. The wind outside, carrying snow against the windows. The settling of old wood and the hum of the furnace kicking on. These were the sounds of home, the sounds I'd grown up with, the sounds that had comforted me through countless nights. But tonight they sounded different, fuller somehow, because Emma was here to share them. For the first time in 7 years, our family was complete. Not perfect, not without scars and complications, but complete. And that was enough. That was everything. I must have eventually fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through my window, bright and cheerful. I blinked awake, momentarily disoriented, and then remembered. Emma. Emma was home. I sat up quickly, suddenly afraid that I'd dreamed the whole thing, that I'd go downstairs and find Mom alone at the breakfast table, that the blue sedan in the driveway would be gone. But when I looked out my window, I could see the car, now covered in a thick layer of snow. And when I went downstairs, following the smell of coffee and bacon, I found both Mom and Emma in the kitchen. Emma was standing at the stove, flipping pancakes, while Mom sat at the table with her coffee, watching her daughter with an expression of pure contentment. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Emma said, turning to smile at me. "I hope you're hungry. I'm making my famous chocolate chip pancakes." "Your famous pancakes that are really just regular pancakes with chocolate chips thrown in?" I teased, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Hey, don't knock the classics," Emma said, pretending to be offended. "These pancakes have won awards." "What awards?" "The award for best pancakes made by me, obviously." We all laughed, and I felt something in my chest loosen, some tension I'd been carrying for so long that I'd forgotten it was there. This was what I'd been missing. This easy banter, this comfortable teasing, this sense of belonging that came from being with people who knew you inside and out and loved you anyway. We ate breakfast together, talking about our plans for the day. It was Christmas Eve, and we had traditions to uphold. We'd go to the tree lot and pick out a wreath for the front door, even though we already had one, because Dad had always insisted on getting a fresh one on Christmas Eve. We'd drive around town looking at Christmas lights, stopping for hot chocolate at the diner that stayed open late during the holidays. We'd come home and watch our favorite Christmas movies, the same ones we'd watched every year for as long as I could remember. And at midnight, we'd open one present each, a tradition that dated back to when Emma and I were too excited to wait until morning. Emma listened to the plans with tears in her eyes. "I can't believe you've kept all the traditions going," she said. "Even without me." "Especially without you," Mom said gently. "We kept them going because they reminded us of you, because they made us feel connected to you even when you were far away. And now you're here to do them with us, which makes them even more special." The day unfolded exactly as planned, each tradition observed with reverence and joy. At the tree lot, Emma insisted on the biggest, fullest wreath they had, and we hung it on the front door together, stepping back to admire our work. The wreath was decorated with red berries and pine cones and a big red bough, and it smelled like Christmas, like winter forests and childhood memories. Driving around town, Emma marveled at how much had stayed the same. The Johnsons still had their elaborate light display that covered every inch of their house and yard, complete with animated reindeer and a life-size nativity scene. The Millers still had their simple white lights outlining their windows, elegant and understated. The town square still had the big tree that the mayor lit every year, surrounded by wooden cutouts of snowmen and candy canes.
But there were changes too.
The old hardware store had closed and been replaced by a coffee shop. The elementary school had gotten a new playground. Some houses had new families, new decorations, new stories. Emma pointed out each change, asking questions, wanting to know everything she'd missed. At the diner, we squeezed into our favorite booth, the one by the window with the slightly torn red vinyl seats. The place was packed with other families doing the same thing we were, seeking warmth and sugar and community on this cold Christmas Eve. We ordered hot chocolate with extra whipped cream and marshmallows, and when it arrived, steaming and sweet, Emma closed her eyes and took a sip.
"This tastes exactly like I remember," she said. "How is that possible? How can something taste exactly the same after 7 years?"
"Some things are constants," Mom said. "Some things don't change, no matter how much time passes. And we should be grateful for that." We stayed at the diner for over an hour, talking and laughing and watching the snow fall outside the window. Other people stopped by our table to say hello, neighbors and old friends who remembered Emma and were surprised and delighted to see her home. She hugged them and answered their questions and promised to catch up properly after the holidays, and I could see her relaxing more with each interaction, settling back into the rhythm of small-town life. When we finally got home, it was late afternoon, and the sky was already darkening. We changed into comfortable clothes, made popcorn, and settled in the living room for our movie marathon. We started with It's a Wonderful Life, because that was Dad's favorite, and we always watched it first in his honor. Emma cried during the ending, when George Bailey realizes how much his life has mattered, and I held her hand, crying too. "I feel like George Bailey," Emma said when the credits rolled. "I feel like I've been given a second chance, a chance to see what my life could be if I make different choices. And I'm so grateful for it." We moved on to Miracle on 34th Street, then White Christmas, then Home Alone, which always made us laugh no matter how many times we'd seen it. Between movies, we snacked on popcorn and cookies and the fudge that Mom had made earlier in the week. We sang along to the songs we knew and quoted our favorite lines and paused to share memories that the movies triggered. "Do you remember the year we tried to set up booby traps like in Home Alone?" Emma asked during a commercial break. "We were convinced that burglars were going to break in on Christmas Eve, so we spent all day rigging up traps. And then Dad came home from work and stepped on the marbles we'd put at the bottom of the stairs," I continued, laughing at the memory. "He nearly broke his neck. Mom was so mad at us." "I wasn't mad," Mom protested, but she was smiling. "I was terrified. Your father could have been seriously hurt. But I'll admit, it was creative." "We were menaces," Emma said fondly. "Absolute menaces." "You still are," Mom said, reaching over to pat Emma's knee. "But you're my menaces, and I wouldn't have it any other way." As midnight approached, we gathered around the Christmas tree for the present opening tradition. We each had one gift with our name on it, wrapped in colorful paper and topped with bows. This was always the hardest part of Christmas Eve for me, choosing which present to open, knowing that the rest would have to wait until morning. Emma picked up her present, a medium-sized box wrapped in silver paper with a blue bow. She shook it gently, trying to guess what was inside, just like she used to do when we were kids. "It's not ticking, so probably not a bomb," she joked. "Open it and find out," Mom urged, her eyes twinkling with anticipation. Emma carefully removed the bow and set it aside, then slowly peeled back the wrapping paper, trying not to tear it. Inside was a plain cardboard box, and inside that, nestled in tissue paper, was a photo album. Emma lifted it out carefully, running her hand over the cover, which was decorated with a collage of pictures of the three of us. She opened it, and I watched her face as she looked at the first page. It was a photo from her first Christmas, a tiny baby in a red velvet dress, held by Mom while Dad looked on with an expression of wonder. The next page showed her first steps, her first birthday, her first day of school. Page after page chronicled her life, our lives, all the moments big and small that had made us who we were. "I made it over the past few months," Mom said softly. "I thought, whether you came home or not, I wanted you to have a record of your life here, of the family that loves you. I wanted you to know that even though you were far away, you were never forgotten. Every moment, every memory, we kept them all safe for you." Emma was crying openly now, tears dripping onto the pages as she turned them. There were photos I'd forgotten about, moments I hadn't thought of in years. Emma and me building a snowman, both of us bundled up so much we could barely move. Emma at her high school graduation, proud and excited and ready to take on the world. Emma and Dad working on her car, both of them covered in grease and grinning. Emma and me on that last summer before she left, at the lake, at the fair, at home, always together. The last page had a recent photo, one I'd taken of Mom in the garden just a few months ago. She was kneeling in the dirt, her hands full of tomatoes, smiling at the camera. And next to it was a blank space, waiting to be filled. "That space is for new memories," Mom explained. "For the moments we're going to create now that you're home. This isn't just a record of the past. It's a promise for the future." Emma closed the album and hugged it to her chest, then reached for Mom and pulled her into a tight embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for keeping me alive in your hearts even when I wasn't here to deserve it." "You always deserved it," Mom said firmly. "Always." I opened my present next, a beautiful scarf that Mom had knitted in my favorite colors, and Mom opened hers, a set of gardening tools that Emma and I had gone in on together weeks ago, before we knew Emma would be here to give it in person. We admired each other's gifts and thanked each other and then just sat there, the three of us, in the glow of the Christmas tree lights, feeling blessed and grateful and whole. Eventually, Mom announced that she was going to bed. "It's been a long, wonderful day," she said, kissing both of us on the forehead. "But this old woman needs her sleep. You two stay up as long as you want. Just try not to eat all the cookies before morning." After she went upstairs, Emma and I stayed by the tree, neither of us ready for the day to end. We turned off all the lights except for the tree, and the room was transformed into something magical, something out of a fairy tale. The colored lights reflected off the ornaments and cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the angel on top seemed to glow with an inner light. "I have something for you," Emma said suddenly. "It's not wrapped or anything. I didn't have time. But I want you to have it." She went upstairs and came back a moment later with a small box. Inside was a necklace, a delicate silver chain with a pendant shaped like two interlocking hearts. "It's not expensive or fancy," Emma said as I lifted it out of the box. "But I bought it years ago, right after I moved to Seattle. I saw it in a shop window, and it made me think of us. I kept meaning to send it to you, but I never did. I think part of me was saving it for when I could give it to you in person." I put it on, and Emma fastened the clasp at the back of my neck. The pendant rested just below my collarbone, cool against my skin. "It's perfect," I said, touching it gently. "I love it." "The two hearts are supposed to represent us," Emma explained. separate but connected, always part of each other no matter how far apart we are.
She paused, then added, I know I haven't been a very good representation of that the past few years. But I want to be. I want to be the sister you deserve. You already are, I said. You came back. That's all that matters. We talked for a while longer, making plans for the coming days and weeks. Emma wanted to help Mom with the garden in the spring. She wanted to volunteer at the library with me. She wanted to reconnect with old friends and explore the town and rediscover all the things she'd loved about this place before she left. She talked about maybe looking for a job locally, something that would let her use her skills but wouldn't consume her life the way her old job had. She talked about therapy, about working through the issues that had led to her breakdown, about learning to be happy with a simpler life. And I listened and encouraged and offered suggestions, feeling more hopeful than I had in years. Because Emma was here, really here, not just physically but emotionally. She was present and engaged and committed to rebuilding her life, to rebuilding our relationship. And I knew it wouldn't always be easy. There would be hard days and difficult conversations and moments of doubt. But we'd face them together, the way sisters should. Around 2 a.m, we finally admitted that we needed to sleep. We turned off the tree lights and made our way upstairs, pausing at the top to hug one more time. Merry Christmas, Emma whispered. Merry Christmas, I whispered back. In my room, I changed into my pajamas and climbed into bed, but again I found myself too full of emotion to sleep right away. I lay there in the darkness, touching the necklace Emma had given me, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday at this time, I'd been standing on the porch, feeling lonely and sad and resigned to another Christmas without my sister. And now she was here, sleeping in the room next to mine, home where she belonged. I thought about Dad and wished he could be here to see this. He would have been so happy to have both his daughters under his roof again. He would have made terrible jokes and told embarrassing stories and probably cried at least once, because he was always more emotional than he liked to admit. But he would have been happy, and that happiness would have filled the house like light. But in a way, he was here. He was here in the traditions we kept, in the lessons he'd taught us, in the love he'd given us that continued to shape who we were. He was here in the letter Emma had found, the words that had brought her home. He was here in the memories we shared and the stories we told. Death had taken his physical presence, but it couldn't take the impact he'd had on our lives. I finally drifted off to sleep with a smile on my face, feeling more at peace than I had in years. And when I woke up on Christmas morning to the sound of Emma and Mom laughing in the kitchen, to the smell of cinnamon rolls baking and coffee brewing, to the knowledge that my family was together again, I felt like I'd been given the greatest gift imaginable. Christmas Day was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. We opened presents in our pajamas, taking turns and savoring each gift, making the morning last as long as possible. Emma had somehow managed to order gifts online before she left Seattle, and they'd arrived just in time. She gave Mom a beautiful set of wind chimes for the garden and gave me a first edition of my favorite book, something I'd mentioned wanting years ago and was shocked she remembered. We cooked Christmas dinner together, all three of us crowded into the kitchen, bumping into each other and laughing and stealing bites of food when we thought no one was looking. Emma made her famous mashed potatoes, the ones with cream cheese and garlic that were absolutely terrible for you but tasted like heaven. Mom made her traditional roast with all the trimmings. And I made the green bean casserole that Dad had always loved, following his recipe exactly, the one he'd written out for me in his messy handwriting years ago. We set the table with the good china, the set that had belonged to Grandma and only came out for special occasions. We lit candles and put on Christmas music and made everything as festive as possible. And when we finally sat down to eat, Mom said grace, thanking God for the food and for our health and for bringing Emma home safely. As we ate, we told stories. Mom told us about Christmases from when she was a child, growing up in a different time, when presents were simpler and expectations were lower but joy was just as abundant. Emma told us about Christmas in Seattle, about the friends she'd celebrated with and the traditions they'd created, but also about how hollow it had all felt, how she'd gone through the motions without really feeling the spirit of the season. And I told them about the Christmases they'd missed, the ones where it had been just Mom and me. I told them about the year we'd volunteered at the soup kitchen on Christmas Day, serving meals to people who had nowhere else to go, and how meaningful that had been. I told them about the year we'd adopted a family through the Giving Tree program at church, buying presents for kids we'd never met, and how good it had felt to spread joy to others. I told them about the quiet moments, the times when Mom and I had sat by the tree and remembered Dad and Emma and felt their absence like a physical ache. But I also told them about the joy we'd found, Mom and me, in creating our own traditions and supporting each other and learning to be happy even when our family felt incomplete. I told them about the strength we discovered in ourselves, the resilience that came from facing hard things and surviving them. I told them that while I'd missed Emma desperately, I'd also grown in her absence, become more independent and confident and sure of who I was. Emma listened with tears in her eyes, and when I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "I'm proud of the woman you've become, the life you've built. I'm proud that you didn't let my absence break you, that you found ways to thrive even when things were hard. You're stronger than I ever was." "We're both strong," I said. "We just show it in different ways. You were strong enough to leave and chase your dreams. I was strong enough to stay and build a life here. Neither one is better or worse. They're just different." After dinner, we cleaned up together, washing dishes and putting away leftovers and wiping down counters. Then we bundled up in coats and scarves and boots and went for a walk around the neighborhood. The snow had stopped falling, and the world was blanketed in white, pristine, and beautiful. The air was crisp and cold, burning our lungs with each breath, but it felt good, invigorating, alive. We walked past houses where families were gathered, visible through lit windows, celebrating their own Christmases. We walked past the park where Emma and I had played as children, the swings now covered in snow, the slide a slippery sheet of ice. We walked past the school we'd both attended, dark and empty for the holiday break. And everywhere we went, Emma pointed out memories, moments from our shared past that these places triggered. "That's where I had my first kiss," she said, pointing to a spot under a large oak tree. "Tommy Henderson, 8th grade. It was terrible. He had braces and didn't know what he was doing, and neither did I. That's where we used to have snowball fights," I added, gesturing to an empty lot. "Remember the year you hit Mr. Patterson's car by accident, and we ran away before he could see who did it?" "I felt so guilty about that," Emma said, laughing. "I couldn't sleep for a week. I kept expecting the police to show up at our door." "That's where Dad taught us to ride bikes," Mom said, pointing to a stretch of sidewalk. "You both fell so many times, scraped your knees and elbows, but you kept getting back up. Your father was so patient, running alongside you, holding the seats until you were ready to go on your own." We walked for over an hour, circling the neighborhood, revisiting our past, creating new memories. By the time we got home, our cheeks were red from the cold and our fingers were numb despite our gloves, but we were happy, filled with the kind of contentment that comes from being exactly where you're supposed to be with exactly the people you're supposed to be with. That evening, we played board games, something we hadn't done in years. We pulled out the old classics from the hall closet, games with worn boxes and missing pieces that we'd played 1,000 times. We played Monopoly,
which took forever and ended with Emma winning, as usual. We played Scrabble, which Mom won with an impressive vocabulary and strategic tile placement. We played Clue, which I won by process of elimination and a lucky guess. Between games, we snacked on leftovers and cookies and the candy canes that hung on the tree. We listened to Christmas music and sang along, our voices blending in harmony on the songs we all knew by heart. We laughed until our sides hurt and teased each other mercilessly and fell back into the easy rhythm of family, of people who knew each other's quirks and loved each other anyway. As the evening wore on and we all started to get tired, Emma suddenly said, "I want to make a promise to both of you. I want to promise that I'll never let this much time pass again without seeing you. I want to promise that I'll call every week, that I'll visit as often as I can, that I'll be present in your lives even if circumstances take me away from here again. I want to promise that I'll never take this family for granted again." "We appreciate that, sweetheart," Mom said. "But you don't have to make promises. Life happens, and we understand that. What matters is that you're here now, and that you want to be here. That's enough." "But I want to make the promise anyway," Emma insisted. "I need to say it out loud, to commit to it, to hold myself accountable. I lost 7 years with you because I was too focused on other things, because I let work and distance and my own fears get in the way. I don't want to lose any more time. Life is too short, and family is too important."
"Then we promise too," I said. "We promise to support you, whatever you decide to do next.
We promise to be here for you, to listen without judgment, to love you unconditionally.
We promise to be the family you need, the family you deserve."
We sealed our promises with a group hug, the three of us holding each other tight, and I felt something shift in the universe, some cosmic alignment that said this was right, this was how things were supposed to be.
We'd been broken, scattered, incomplete.
But now we were healing, coming back together, becoming whole again. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the past 2 days and marveled at how much had changed. 48 hours ago, I'd been resigned to a quiet, lonely Christmas.
Now, my sister was home, my family was together, and the future felt full of possibility.
It was like a Christmas miracle, the kind you read about in stories but never expect to experience in real life. But it wasn't really a miracle, I realized. It was choice.
Emma had chosen to come home.
She'd chosen to face her fears and admit her mistakes and reach out for help. She'd chosen family over pride, connection over isolation, love over fear. And that choice had changed everything.
The next few days passed in a blur of happiness.
We stayed in our pajamas until noon, watched movies, played games, cooked elaborate meals, and talked for hours. Emma started looking at job postings in the area, exploring options that would let her use her skills without sacrificing her well-being. She called her friends in Seattle and explained that she wouldn't be coming back, that she'd found what she was looking for here, at home. Some of them understood, and some of them didn't, but Emma seemed at peace with her decision. She also started unpacking, really unpacking, not just living out of her duffel bag but putting her clothes in drawers and her toiletries in the bathroom and her books on the shelf. She was making the room hers again, reclaiming the space she'd left behind, and it felt significant, symbolic of her commitment to staying. One afternoon, about a week after Christmas, Emma and I were sitting in the living room, drinking tea and watching snow fall outside the window. The house was quiet, Mom having gone to visit a friend, and we were enjoying the peaceful solitude.
"Can I ask you something?" Emma said suddenly, setting down her mug.
"Of course," I said.
"Anything. Do you think I made the right choice? Coming back here, I mean. Giving up my career, my life in Seattle. Do you think I'm running away from my problems instead of facing them? I considered the question carefully, wanting to give her an honest answer. I think you're doing exactly what you need to do, I said finally. You weren't happy there, Emma. You were successful, sure, but success doesn't mean anything if you're miserable. Coming home isn't running away. It's running toward something. Toward family, toward healing, toward a life that actually makes you happy. But what if I can't find a job here? What if I get bored? What if I start to resent this place and the choice I made? Then you'll deal with those things when they happen, I said. But you can't live your life based on what ifs. You have to make the best choice you can with the information you have right now, and trust that you'll be able to handle whatever comes next. And you won't be alone. You'll have me and Mom. We'll figure it out together. Emma smiled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. You're right, she said. I know you're right. It's just scary, you know? Starting over. Not knowing what comes next. It is scary, I agreed. But it's also exciting. You get to reinvent yourself, to figure out who you are when you're not defined by your job or your zip code. You get to explore what makes you happy, what gives your life meaning. That's a gift, Emma. Not everyone gets that chance. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the snow accumulate on the windowsill. Then Emma said, "Thank you for not being angry with me. For not resenting me for staying away so long. I wouldn't have blamed you if you had." I was never angry, I said truthfully. Sad, yes. Lonely, definitely. But never angry. I understood why you left, and I understood why you stayed away. Life gets complicated, and sometimes the people we love get lost in the shuffle. But that doesn't mean the love goes away. It's always there, waiting for us to come back to it. You're very wise, you know that? Emma said, smiling at me. I've had a lot of time to think, I said with a shrug. And I've learned that holding on to anger and resentment doesn't hurt the other person. It only hurts you. So I chose to let it go, to focus on the love instead of the hurt. And I'm glad I did, because it meant that when you came home, we could pick up where we left off instead of having to work through years of bitterness first. Emma reached over and took my hand, squeezing it gently. I don't know what I did to deserve a sister like you, she said. But I'm grateful for it every single day. The feeling is mutual, I said, squeezing back. As January arrived and the holiday decorations came down, Emma settled more fully into her new life. She found a job at a local tech company, a small startup that was doing interesting work without the cutthroat culture of her previous employer. The pay was less than what she'd been making in Seattle, but it was enough, and more importantly, it allowed her to have a life outside of work. She had evenings and weekends free, time to spend with family and friends, time to pursue hobbies and interests that had fallen by the wayside during her years in the city. She also started therapy, working through the burnout and depression that had led to her breakdown. It wasn't easy, and there were hard days when she questioned everything, but she stuck with it, committed to doing the work necessary to heal. And slowly, gradually, I watched her come back to life. The light returned to her eyes. Her laugh became more frequent and genuine. She started making plans for the future, talking about things she wanted to do and places she wanted to go and dreams she wanted to pursue. She reconnected with old friends, people she'd known in high school and college who still lived in the area. At first, it was awkward, explaining where she'd been and why she'd come back, but people were understanding and welcoming. They invited her to dinners and game nights and book clubs, folding her back into the community like she'd never left.
And Emma, who'd been so isolated in Seattle, surrounded by people but still alone, found herself part of something again. Part of a community, a network of relationships that gave her life depth and meaning. She also spent time with Mom, helping in the garden and cooking meals and just being present in a way she hadn't been in years. They talked about everything and nothing, making up for lost time, rebuilding their relationship. And I watched them together, saw the bond between mother and daughter strengthen and deepen, and felt grateful that Emma had come home in time, that she hadn't waited until it was too late. As for Emma and me, we fell back into the easy closeness we'd always had. We had standing dates for coffee every Saturday morning, or we'd catch up on the week and make plans for the weekend. We watched our favorite shows together, texting commentary back and forth even when we were in different rooms. We went for walks and tried new recipes and laughed at inside jokes that no one else would understand. We were sisters again, best friends again, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. One evening in late February, almost 2 months after Emma had come home, we were sitting on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the sunset. The air was still cold, but there was a hint of spring in it, a promise that winter wouldn't last forever. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange and purple, and the world felt peaceful, balanced, right. "I'm happy," Emma said suddenly, her voice soft and wondering. "I'm actually happy. I can't remember the last time I could say that and mean it." "I'm glad," I said, reaching over to take her hand. "You deserve to be happy." "So do you," Emma said, turning to look at me. "And I hope you know that. I hope you know that you don't have to stay here just because of Mom or because you feel obligated. If there's something you want to do, somewhere you want to go, you should do it. I'm here now. I can take care of things." I smiled, touched by her concern. "I appreciate that," I said. "But I'm not staying here out of obligation. I'm staying because this is where I want to be. This is my home, my life, and I love it." Maybe that seems small or boring compared to what you had in Seattle, but it's enough for me. It's more than enough. It doesn't seem small at all, Emma said firmly. It seems rich and full and meaningful. You have a job you love, a community that values you, a family that adores you. You have roots and connections and purpose. That's not small. That's everything. We sat in silence for a while, watching the last of the daylight fade and the stars begin to appear. The porch light flickered on automatically, casting a warm glow over us, and I could hear Mom moving around in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Everything felt perfect, complete, like all the pieces of my life had finally fallen into place. "Thank you for coming home," I said to Emma. "Thank you for choosing us, for choosing this life. I know it wasn't easy, and I know you gave up a lot. But having you here, it's made everything better. It's made me better." "Thank you for welcoming me back," Emma said. "Thank you for not making me feel guilty or ashamed. Thank you for just loving me, even when I didn't deserve it." "You always deserved it," I said. Always. As the months passed and winter gave way to spring, our new normal solidified. Emma thrived in her job, making friends and contributing to projects that excited her. She started dating someone, a kind man who worked at the local bookstore and shared her love of reading and hiking. She introduced him to us nervously, worried about what we'd think, but we loved him immediately. He was good for her, grounding and supportive, and he made her laugh in a way that lit up her whole face. Mom's garden flourished under Emma's help, producing more vegetables than we knew what to do with. We gave bags of tomatoes and zucchini to neighbors and co-workers, and Mom started canning and preserving, filling the pantry with jars of pickles and jams and sauces.
The house smelled like summer, like growth and abundance in life.
I got a promotion at the library, becoming the assistant director, and Emma threw me a surprise party to celebrate. She invited all my friends and co-workers, decorated the house with balloons and streamers, and made a cake from scratch that was slightly lopsided but delicious. I was overwhelmed by the gesture, by the love and effort she'd put into making me feel special, and I cried happy tears while everyone sang and cheered. We celebrated holidays together, all of them, not just Christmas.
Easter with its egg hunts and special church service.
4th of July with its fireworks and barbecue. Thanksgiving with its massive meal and tradition of going around the table saying what we were grateful for. Each holiday was a chance to create new memories, to build on our traditions, to strengthen the bonds that held us together. And through it all, Emma kept her promise. She called when she said she would. She showed up when she said she'd be there. She was present and engaged and committed to being part of our lives. There were still hard days, times when the depression crept back in or the anxiety became overwhelming, but she didn't hide it from us. She let us in, let us help, let us be the family she needed. 1 year after that Christmas Eve when Emma had shown up in our driveway, we gathered again around the tree. The three of us, plus Emma's boyfriend, who'd become part of our family over the past months. We exchanged gifts and told stories and laughed until our sides hurt. And at midnight, when we opened our one present each, Emma gave me a framed photo. It was a picture from that first night, taken by Mom when Emma and I were hugging in the driveway. We were both crying, both holding each other like we'd never let go, and the Christmas lights created a halo around us. It was raw and emotional and beautiful, capturing a moment of pure love and reunion. On the back, Emma had written a note. To Sarah, my sister, my best friend, my anchor. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for showing me what home really means. Thank you for loving me through everything. This is the moment my life started over, the moment I found my way back to what matters. I will treasure it, and you, forever. Love always, Emma. I held the photo to my chest, crying again, overwhelmed by the love I felt for my sister, for my family, for this life we'd built together. Emma came over and hugged me, and then Mom joined in, and then Emma's boyfriend, and we all stood there in a tangle of arms and love, grateful for each other, grateful for second chances, grateful for home. Looking back now, I can see that Christmas is a turning point, not just for Emma but for all of us. It was the night we learned that it's never too late to come home, never too late to admit you need help, never too late to choose love over fear. It was the night we learned that family isn't about being perfect or always being together. It's about showing up when it matters, about forgiveness and grace, about loving each other through the hard times and celebrating together during the good times. Emma's return taught me that people can change, that they can recognize their mistakes and make different choices. It taught me that distance doesn't diminish love, that the bonds of family can stretch across miles and years and still remain strong. It taught me that home isn't just a place. It's a feeling, a sense of belonging, a knowledge that you are loved and valued and accepted exactly as you are. And most importantly, it taught me that miracles do happen, just not always in the ways we expect. Sometimes a miracle isn't a dramatic intervention or a supernatural event. Sometimes it's just a person making a brave choice, getting in a car, and driving home. Sometimes it's a family opening their arms and their hearts and saying welcome back, we've missed you, we love you. Sometimes it's the simple act of being together, of sharing a meal and a laugh and a moment of connection. That Christmas, the night my sister came home after years away, was my miracle. It was the answer to prayers I'd been too afraid to voice, the fulfillment of hopes I tried not to have. It was proof that love endures, that family matters, that it's never too late to find your way back to where you belong. And now, years later, with Emma still here, still part of our daily lives, still showing up and being present and choosing us every single day, I am grateful beyond words. Grateful for that cold December night when headlights appeared in our driveway. Grateful for the courage it took for Emma to come home. Grateful for the love that held us together even when we were apart. Grateful for second chances and new beginnings and the knowledge that family is forever, no matter what. Every Christmas now, when we gather around the tree and exchange gifts and tell stories, I think back to that night. I remember the shock and joy of seeing Emma standing in our driveway. I remember the feel of her in my arms after 7 years apart. I remember the tears and the laughter and the overwhelming sense of rightness that came from having my family whole again. And I am reminded that the best gifts aren't the ones that come wrapped in paper and tied with bows. The best gifts are the people we love, the moments we share, the memories we create together. Emma came home for Christmas 7 years after leaving, and in doing so, she gave us all the greatest gift imaginable. She gave us herself, her presence, her love. She gave us the chance to be a family again, to heal old wounds and create new traditions. She gave us hope and joy and a future filled with possibility. And for that, I will be grateful for the rest of my life. The snow falls outside my window now as I sit here remembering, the same way it fell that night years ago. The Christmas lights twinkle on the tree, casting the same warm glow. The house smells of cinnamon and pine and all the scents that mean home. And upstairs, I can hear Emma moving around in her room, getting ready for the Christmas Eve celebration we'll have tonight, the same traditions we've kept for years now, the same rituals that bind us together. In a few minutes, I'll go downstairs and help Mom in the kitchen. Emma will join us, and we'll cook and laugh and steal bites of food when we think no one is looking. We'll set the table with Grandma's china and light the candles and put on Christmas music. We'll eat together and tell stories and be grateful for each other. And at midnight, we'll open one present each, savoring the anticipation, making the magic last as long as possible. It will be perfect, not because everything goes according to plan or because we're a perfect family, but because we're together. Because we chose each other, again and again, through the hard times and the good times. Because we learned that love is stronger than distance, that forgiveness is more powerful than resentment, that home is wherever your family is. This is my Christmas story, the story of the night my sister came home after years away. It's a story about loss and loneliness, about mistakes and regrets, about the courage it takes to admit you need help and the grace it takes to offer it. But most of all, it's a story about love. The kind of love that endures through time and distance. The kind of love that forgives and forgets and starts fresh. The kind of love that says you are home, you are welcome, you are ours, no matter what. And as I sit here in this house that has held so many memories, so many moments of joy and sorrow, I am filled with gratitude. Gratitude for my sister, who found her way back to us. Gratitude for my mother, who never stopped believing Emma would come home. Gratitude for my father, whose words from beyond the grave helped guide Emma back to what mattered. Gratitude for this life, this family, this home that has shaped me and held me and given me everything I need. The Christmas lights blink on and off, a steady rhythm that matches my heartbeat. Outside, the world is quiet and cold, blanketed in snow. But inside, there is warmth and light and love. Inside, there is family. Inside, there is home. And that, I have learned, is the greatest gift of all. Not the presents under the tree or the decorations on the walls or the food on the table, but the people who gather together, who choose each other, who create a space where everyone belongs. Emma came home for Christmas years after leaving, and in doing so, she reminded us all of what truly matters.
She reminded us that success isn't measured by job titles or salaries or zip codes. It's measured by the love we give and receive, by the connections we nurture, by the lives we touch. She reminded us that it's never too late to change course, to admit mistakes, to choose a different path. She reminded us that home is always waiting, arms open, ready to welcome us back. And so, as another Christmas approaches and I prepare to celebrate with the people I love most in the world, I carry that lesson with me. I hold it close to my heart, a reminder of what I almost lost and what I was lucky enough to regain. I think of that cold December night when headlights appeared in our driveway, when my sister stepped out of a car and back into our lives, when our family became whole again. And I am grateful, so deeply grateful, for every moment since then. This is the story of the night my sister came home for Christmas, years after leaving. But it's also the story of every day since then, every moment we've shared, every memory we've created. It's the story of a family that was broken and became whole, of love that was tested and proved true, of a home that waited patiently for all its members to return. It's a story that continues to unfold, day by day, moment by moment, as we build our lives together and create new traditions and face whatever challenges come our way. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that the best stories don't end. They just keep going, chapter after chapter, year after year, as long as there are people to live them and love to sustain them. Our story isn't over. It's just beginning, really, this new chapter where we're all together, all present, all committed to making the most of the time we have. And I can't wait to see where it goes, what adventures await us, what joys and sorrows and ordinary miracles we'll experience together. But for now, in this moment, I am content. Content to sit here in the quiet house, listening to the sounds of my family preparing for Christmas, feeling the warmth of home surrounding me like a blanket. Content to remember that night years ago when everything changed, when my sister came home and gave us all a second chance. Content to know that no matter what the future holds, we'll face it together, as a family, as we were always meant to be. The snow continues to fall outside, soft and steady, covering the world in white. The Christmas lights continue to blink, on and off, marking time in their own gentle way. And inside this house, inside this home, there is love and laughter and the promise of many more Christmases to come. Many more nights gathered around the tree, many more meals shared at the old wooden table, many more moments of connection and joy and simple, profound gratitude. This is my Christmas miracle, my gift, my blessing. Not a dramatic intervention from above, but something quieter and more profound. The return of someone I love, the healing of old wounds, the rebuilding of broken bridges. The knowledge that family is forever, that love endures, that home is always waiting. These are the truths that sustain me, that give my life meaning and purpose and joy. And as I finally stand up and make my way downstairs to join my mother and sister in the kitchen, as I step into the warmth and light and love that fills every corner of this house, I carry these truths with me. I carry the memory of that night, the lessons it taught me, the hope it gave me. I carry the knowledge that we are stronger together than apart, that forgiveness is always possible, that it's never too late to come home. Emma looks up as I enter the kitchen, her face breaking into a smile that lights up the room. "There you are," she says. "We were wondering when you'd come down. Come help us with these cookies. Mom's trying to make them fancy, and they're turning into a disaster." "They are not a disaster," Mom protests, laughing. "They're rustic. That's a style." "They're lumpy," Emma says, but she's grinning as she says it, and Mom swats at her with a dish towel, and I join in the laughter, feeling my heart swell with love for these two women who mean everything to me. This is home, I think as I tie on an apron and join them at the counter. This is family. This is what matters. Not the perfect decorations or the flawless meal or the expensive gifts.
Just this. Just us. Just the love that binds us together and the moments we share and the memories we create. And as we work together in the kitchen, flour dusting our clothes and Christmas music playing in the background and the smell of cookies filling the air, I am overwhelmed with gratitude. Gratitude for this moment, this day, this life. Gratitude for second chances and new beginnings. Gratitude for the night my sister came home for Christmas, years after leaving, and changed everything. Outside, the world continues to turn, seasons changing, years passing, life moving forward in its relentless way. But inside this house, inside this moment, time seems to stand still. We are suspended in a bubble of warmth and love, protected from the cold and darkness outside, held safe by the bonds that connect us. And I know, with a certainty that goes bone deep, that this is where I'm meant to be. This is my place, my purpose, my home. Emma catches my eye and winks, and I wink back, and in that simple exchange, I feel the weight of everything we've been through together. The years apart, the pain of separation, the joy of reunion. The struggles and triumphs, the tears and laughter, the ordinary moments and extraordinary ones. All of it is there in that wink, in that moment of connection, in the unspoken understanding that passes between sisters who know each other's hearts. And I think, not for the first time, how lucky I am. Lucky to have a sister who came back, who chose us, who fights every day to be present and engaged in part of our lives. Lucky to have a mother who never gave up hope, who kept Emma's room ready and her place at the table set, who believed in the power of love to bring her daughter home. Lucky to have this house, this town, this life that might seem small to some but feels infinite to me. The cookies come out of the oven, golden and slightly lumpy, just as Emma predicted. We let them cool while we start on dinner, moving around each other with practiced ease, a choreography perfected over years of shared meals and shared space. Mom chops vegetables while Emma stirs a pot on the stove and I set the table, and we talk about everything and nothing, our voices blending together in a familiar harmony. This is what I'll remember, I think. Not the big moments or the dramatic gestures, but these quiet times. These ordinary evenings spent together, doing ordinary things, being ordinary people who love each other extraordinarily. This is what life is really about. Not the achievements or the accolades or the adventures, but the connections. The relationships. The love. And as the evening unfolds, as we eat and laugh and eventually make our way to the living room to open presents, as midnight approaches and the magic of Christmas Eve wraps around us like a warm blanket, I am filled with a peace so profound it brings tears to my eyes. This is enough, I think. This is more than enough. This is everything. Emma opens her present at midnight, a new journal I bought her, leather-bound and beautiful, with her initials embossed on the cover. For your thoughts, I tell her. For your dreams and plans and all the things you want to remember. She hugs me tight, whispering thank you into my hair, and I know she understands what I'm really saying. That I believe in her, that I support her, that I'm proud of the person she's becoming. Mom opens hers next, a photo album Emma and I made together, filled with pictures from the past year. All the moments we've shared since Emma came home, all the memories we've created, all the proof that our family is whole again. Mom cries as she turns the pages, touching each photo gently, and when she looks up at us, her eyes are shining with love and gratitude. And then it's my turn. I open my presents slowly, savoring the anticipation, and inside I find a small box. Inside that box is a key, old and brass and slightly tarnished. I look up at Emma, confused, and she's smiling through tears. It's the key to the house, she explains. The one Dad gave me when I turned 18, the one I was supposed to keep forever as a reminder that I always had a home to come back to. I lost it somewhere along the way, or maybe I threw it away when I was trying to convince myself that I didn't need this place anymore.
But I had a copy made. Because I want you to know that this is your home too, Sarah. Not just because you live here, but because you've made it a home. You've kept it alive and warm and full of love, even when things were hard. You've been the heart of this family, and I want you to have something tangible to remind you of that. I hold the key in my hand, feeling its weight, its significance, and I can't speak for a moment. When I finally find my voice, it comes out thick with emotion. Thank you, I whisper. Thank you for seeing me, for valuing what I've done, for understanding what this place means to me. We come together in another group hug, the three of us holding each other and crying and laughing all at once, and I think about how far we've come. From that night years ago when Emma showed up unexpectedly in our driveway, broken and lost and desperate for home, to this moment now, when we're all healed and whole and exactly where we're supposed to be. It's been a journey, with ups and downs and challenges along the way, but we've made it. We've made it together. The clock strikes 1 in the morning, and we're all exhausted but reluctant to end the night. We clean up slowly, putting away wrapping paper and ribbons, turning off lights, banking the fire in the fireplace. We move through the house like a unit, synchronized and comfortable, and I'm struck again by how right this feels. How natural. How perfect. At the top of the stairs, we pause to say goodnight. Mom kisses us both on the forehead, the way she's done since we were little, and tells us she loves us. Emma and I hug one more time, holding on for an extra moment, and when we pull apart, we're both smiling. Merry Christmas, Sarah, Emma says softly. Merry Christmas, Emma, I reply. In my room, I get ready for bed slowly, thinking about the day, the year, the journey that brought us to this point. I think about Emma's courage in coming home, about Mom's unwavering love, about my own strength in holding things together when they threatened to fall apart. I think about Dad and wish he could be here to see this, to see his family whole and happy and thriving. But in a way, he is here. He's here in the lessons he taught us, in the love he gave us, in the foundation he built that is held strong even in his absence. I climb into bed and turn off the light, but I don't close my eyes right away. Instead, I lie there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the house settling, the wind outside, the soft creak of floorboards as Emma moves around in her room. These are the sounds of home, the sounds that have comforted me my entire life, and tonight they seem especially precious. I think about the key Emma gave me, now sitting on my nightstand, and what it represents. Not just access to a physical structure, but belonging. Security. Love. The knowledge that I have a place in this world, a place where I'm valued and needed and cherished. It's a gift beyond measure, and I will treasure it always. And I think about the story I've lived, the story that's still being written, the story of a family that was broken and became whole. It's not a perfect story. There are chapters one wish I could rewrite, moments I wish I could change. But it's my story, our story, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Because every challenge we've faced has made us stronger. Every tear we've shed has deepened our compassion. Every moment of joy has been sweeter because we know what it's like to be without it. This is the night my sister came home for Christmas, years after leaving. But it's also every night since then, every moment we've shared, every memory we've created. It's the story of love that endures, of family that perseveres, of home that waits patiently for all its members to return. It's a story of second chances and new beginnings, of forgiveness and grace, of the courage it takes to admit you need help and the strength it takes to offer it. And as I finally drift off to sleep, warm and safe and surrounded by love, I am filled with gratitude. Gratitude for this day, this life, this family. Gratitude for the journey that brought us here and the road that stretches ahead.
Gratitude for the knowledge that no matter what challenges we face, we'll face them together.
Because that's what family does. That's what love means. That's what home is all about.
The snow falls softly outside my window, blanketing the world in silence and peace. The house is quiet now, everyone asleep, everyone dreaming their own dreams. But the love that fills this place is almost tangible, a living presence that wraps around us and holds us close. It's in the walls that have witnessed our laughter and tears. It's in the floors that have felt our footsteps, from childhood to adulthood. It's in the air we breathe, the space we share, the moments we create together. This is my Christmas miracle.
Not a single moment, but a lifetime of moments. Not a dramatic rescue, but a quiet return. Not perfection, but something better. Something real and messy and beautiful and true. The kind of miracle that happens when people choose love over fear, when they choose connection over isolation, when they choose to come home. And as I slip into sleep, my last thought is a prayer of thanksgiving. Thank you for this family. Thank you for this home. Thank you for second chances and new beginnings. Thank you for the night my sister came home for Christmas, years after leaving, and changed everything. Thank you for the love that brought her back and the love that keeps us together. Thank you for this life, imperfect and precious and exactly what I need. Tomorrow, we'll wake up and celebrate Christmas Day. We'll open more presents and cook another meal and create more memories. We'll laugh and talk and be together, the way families do. And the day after that, life will go on. Emma will go to work, I'll go to the library, Mom will tend her garden. We'll have our routines and our responsibilities, our challenges and our triumphs. But we'll face them together, as a family, as we were always meant to be. Because that's the real gift of that Christmas Eve years ago when Emma came home. Not just her presence, though that was precious beyond words. But the reminder that family is forever, that love endures, that home is always waiting. The reminder that it's never too late to change course, to admit mistakes, to choose a different path. The reminder that the best things in life aren't things at all, but people. Connections. Relationships. Love. These are the truths I carry with me as I sleep, as I dream, as I prepare to wake up and live another day in this beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary life. These are the lessons that Christmas taught me, that Emma's return reinforced, that every day with my family confirms. And I am grateful, so deeply grateful, for all of it. The night my sister came home for Christmas, years after leaving, was the night everything changed. But it was also the night everything stayed the same, because the love that had always been there, waiting patiently through years of distance and silence, finally had a chance to flourish again. It was the night we learned that home isn't a place you leave behind, but a place you carry with you always. And when you're ready, when you need it most, it's there waiting to welcome you back with open arms. This is my story. This is our story. A story of loss and redemption, of pain and healing, of separation and reunion. A story that continues to unfold with each passing day, each shared meal, each moment of connection. A story that reminds me, again and again, of what truly matters in this life. Not success or achievement or material possessions, but love. Family. Home. The simple, profound gift of being together. And so, as the snow continues to fall and the night deepens and Christmas Day approaches, I rest in the knowledge that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. With the people I'm supposed to be with. Living the life I'm supposed to live. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it. Not without challenges, but filled with love. This is the night my sister came home for Christmas, years after leaving. This is the night that changed everything. This is the night I learned what home really means.
And I will carry this night with me always, a reminder of the power of love, the importance of family, and the miracle of second chances. A reminder that it's never too late to come home, never too late to choose love, never too late to begin again.